device. Oh, it just told me we're recording. Did you just remember, Teresa? Or has it been recording? Okay. Anyway, we're being recorded.
No, it hasn't.
Okay. Um, in this moment of choice, I am now coming back to what I was saying, which is the neurological triggering device is to take your second or third finger. I use the third because it's longer and it gets there first. And to touch that third finger or second finger to your what's commonly called the third eye, the sixth chakra, the point between the eyebrows, and to touch it and to say verbally if you can, or just internally if you're in a social situation that would be considered really weird. You say, "This is a moment of choice. I am aware of this moment of choice. I choose love." You lower the hand. Okay, so let's all try that together. Okay, it's so simple, but trust me, you guys, it makes differences in your whole neurological system. Okay, it releases all sorts of good hormones and everything. Take your hand, take a breath, touch that finger to the third eye, repeat after me. I am aware of this moment of choice. I am aware of this moment of choice. I choose love. I choose love. Take another breath. Lower your hand. So, it ain't rocket science. It's so simple, and the deepest, most effective spiritual principles are so simple. So, the guarantee that I give in the book is that they don't work though if you don't use them. And it's usually in those moments when we're triggered that sometimes it can be challenging just to remember to use it, right? I, I think maybe judging by the audience that I'm seeing here, just are some of you of the age that you can remember that I could have had a V8 commercial. Anybody remember that? So that's what I always think of, right? I mean, that it left an impression all these years. We remember that, right? But it's the same sort of thing. It's like, I could have chosen love. In that moment, I could have been aware and chosen love. And then, so what do you do when you don't? As soon as you become aware, you forgive yourself. Okay, good. I forgive myself. And now I have moved from that level of awareness or unawareness to this level of awareness that in this moment I'm aware. And so, hooray, I celebrate the growth. And maybe it was 5 seconds ago, or maybe it was 5 years or 5 decades ago that I didn't have the awareness to make the choice that I now, in this moment, can and will make. And that piece is so huge and so important, because if we don't recognize the growth that we've undergone in seconds, days, months, years, decades, then we get stuck in what I call the penalty box. We keep ourselves stuck in a penalty box and we keep beating ourselves up, right? For not having made that choice, for how could I have been so selfish, so unaware, so whatever. Let it go and choose again, because each moment is a new opportunity to choose love. And this is where I so strongly believe, and I know that Teresa is in the same kind of resonance with me, that this is how the world changes in these moments. So back to the towel, socks. He does both. I chose socks. So you see the socks on the floor, and triggered reaction rather than response. Reaction might be, how many times are, and then it triggers into all those and all the other things that you're still annoyed at this person about. It opens that Pandora's box. You don't want to go there. You really don't want to go there. Part of you wants to, because then you get to be righteously indignant. You get to be right. You get to be, but really in the big picture, that's not where you want to go. So you come back and you go, I get it. This is a moment of choice. I can choose love. So you bend down. So first of all, you do, I'm aware of the moment of choice. And the first time you do this, it might be, I choose love. You're still in your frustrated, triggered reaction. You take another breath, you say, I choose love. Maybe you do it 10 times. You do it as long as you need to shift that energy to what you really know you want to choose. You bend down, you pick up the frickin' socks, and you say, I love this person. I don't like that he leaves his socks on the floor. We'll talk about this later, but I love him. And that sets up this whole other cascade of emotions and cascade of chemicals in your body, and your day goes much better than if you stayed in that stuck, triggered anger phase, right? And then later, perhaps you do talk about it, or you pick your battles and say, this person's probably just going to do this for the rest of their life, so I can keep choosing love, you know? But the point is, even if you want to come into discussion about it, going into communication about an issue like this, you don't want to go in from that triggered place, right? Because we've all been there way too many times where you just bump, 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 and you just bounce off each other in fear-based anger, resentment. You did this, I said this, blah, blah, blah. So you want to start any kind of communication or problems resolution from that place of love. I love you, and I love me, and let's talk about this. Okay? So, anyway, that's the mundane stuff of everyday life application of this principle. And then it goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum of the examples again that I give in the book are you are diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, or even harder, I speak from experience for me, your daughter is diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. This is a moment of choice. Deep breath. I choose love. I choose to put all my energy into love, into what do we do now, into the next step that we take to begin this healing path, rather than fear, right? So, okay. Is it okay to open it up, Teresa? Does anybody have
Yeah,
comments, questions? I've been rambling on here for a while. Is this making sense? Hitting home somehow? Hmm.
I love the power and the simplicity of that tool because the more you employ it, the more you change your life, the more you empower yourself, the more you live aligned with love. Beautiful, Nancy. Hi,
Thanks, Teresa.
Ava.
Hey, Eva.
Unmute. Hello. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Teresa. Thank you so
Hi.
much for facilitating this and for sharing your wisdom, Nancy. I've already learned enough, to be extremely grateful to be here today. But I just wanted to comment on the idea of remembering, because I find that, we know so many things, and that V8, yes, I'm old enough to remember that very well, but it will remind me in a way, right? Because that's the mnemonic, or the mind triggering connection that's
Right,
really helpful. Because
right,
it's so, it's like when you tell someone take 3 breaths before you whatever, or count to 10 before you whatever. It would help if we did it.
right.
And the other thing I'm going to really be grateful for is your reminder that the other choice is that self-righteous indignation that feels so good.
Yeah.
So I will say, for me, right, it is a feeling that can seem very alluring and as if it's going to provide some degree of relief. And yet we all know that your heart still hurts and it's really not helpful at all. So those two things I'm really grateful for your sharing today.
Oh, thank you, Ava. Thank you. Yeah, those are two of the absolute nuggets that I am thrilled came through. Because, yeah, and you're absolutely right. In that moment, the ego can take some satisfaction in being right. And when we're in fear, that's what takes over. We want to feel safe, and that's the best way it knows how to keep us safe. But then when we open and expand into a much deeper knowing and remembering, like you just said, a remembering, there's an even deeper remembering that that's not who I am. And I say the I am with all capital letters now. I'm not that ego part, and I'm not unsafe. And that's where all that stems from, is a feeling of separation and unsafety, right? So as soon as we can come to that place of knowing that I'm safe and I'm loved, and even beyond the verb usage of love, I am love as a state of being. And I don't know about you guys, but that's what I am just being. Oh, I mean, I was thinking about it this morning, and it's like, what came to me was like, I feel like I can't even contain this, and then I laughed at myself because I can't. We can't contain this, and that's the whole um, gist of what's happening. The essence of what's happening is this energy that's coming through now, this absolute expansion of this higher vibratory energy that's available to us now, that's coming through as more and more of us attune to this higher vibrational of unconditional love. We can't contain it within our ego selves, within our physical forms. So that actually, before, okay, so somebody remind me, Teresa. I'm pointing to you. Who knows where you are on the screen? There you are on my screen. I'd like to talk about being large enough to embrace it all. But before I do that, I just want to ask if there were any other questions or comments that anybody had up till now. Thank you. I feel that. I see that. And I take that in. Okay. And just if at any time you have something, just either raise your physical hand if you're on camera, or I don't know, can you raise your hand if you're not on camera? I don't know. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Um, so I wanted to talk, since it went there into becoming large enough to embrace it all. That's another one of my kind of mainstay affirmations that I work with, which is I am becoming large enough to embrace it all. And to me, large enough or spacious enough, whatever words work for you, because of course, words are all clumsy. They're just stepping stones to get us to where we're trying to go. So, becoming large enough to embrace it all was one of the mainstays through my journey that I talk about in this book, because there was a lot of stuff that was hard to embrace. How do you embrace your own diagnosis? How do you embrace your daughter going through chemo and radiation when you're basically a holistic adjunctive type of person? Anyway, many stories. How do I embrace some of the things that were happening in the interactions with the medical world? So many things. How do I embrace all the feelings that are coming up for me? And it gets back to the love and fear thing again. See, so quickly, because when that fear comes up, I certainly had my moments of fear. And I don't think there's probably anybody in a human body that, if you get diagnosed with a potentially life-threatening disease, that doesn't go through feeling moments of fear. So that's where you put that into application again. But what's really important is to allow yourself to feel it, to experience it, to not resist it or suppress it or push it away or pretend it doesn't exist or think I'm much too spiritually involved to be feeling this. You know, we're human beings. We're divine beings, of course, but we are in these human bodies. And so it's incredibly important to allow yourself to feel it fully and not be afraid of feeling it, because emotion, I'm sure most of you probably have heard this many times, emotion is energy in motion. And it's only when we stop that motion, block it, suppress it, push it down, that it then becomes a blockage, that it becomes a challenge for us. I was just working with a client the other day going through a very deep challenge, and some really deep old stuff was coming up for her. And hence the title of my book, All the Courage Love Takes. Sometimes it can take vast amounts of courage to stay with those feelings and to trust that what I'm feeling in this moment is just a human emotion moving through me from something I experienced a moment ago, a decade ago, decades ago. It's something that if I allow it to continue to move, it will and must change form. These are quantum physics principles that as you allow the energy to keep moving, it will change form. It's like, a pot on the stove of water changes from liquid to gas, and then it goes up and, the whole cycle of things. Energy is constantly changing form. So back to this client. So working with her, she chose to have the courage to go right into the center. And this is where it really can help to have guidance sometimes when you're dealing with some of your deepest, hardest stuff, right, Teresa? Having guidance sometimes from someone to help you through this process, to go right into the center of it and feel and experience that it's like facing the monster in the dream. When you turn and face it, it doesn't devour you. In fact, it changes form. You can expand and allow, rather than being contracted in fear, you expand in a sense of love and trust, and you move through it, and you find yourself in a place of spacious ability to embrace whatever is. And just like the socks on the floor, once you find yourself in that spaciousness, then you can choose to, what's coming to me from my book, walk across the sky bridge with your daughter and check into the hospital immediately to begin figuring out what the heck is going on in her body that's making her neck bigger than her head. So you do, but that takes a spaciousness of being so that you can be effective in the moment, literally able to take action in the moment, right? And to take action from a place of love rather than a place of fear. Make sense? Thank you. I'm feeling your
Can
responses.
everybody relate to a time in their life where they faced something that big and see how the application of the practices and the ways of being that Nancy's talking about can completely transform your relationship to the event?
Mm-hmm.
Powerful.
Thank you, Teresa. Yeah. And this is what I trust will be one of your main takeaways from our time together. And in just a little bit, I would love to guide us into a guided process here if everyone's open to that. But what I do hope and trust that you will take away today is this very pragmatic sense of these very high spiritual principles, and the fact that we again, it just comes back again and again to choice and a recognition that there is a divine synchronicity. And so much of my book comes back and shows examples of that over and over again, that there is a divine synchronicity. And by that I mean being in alignment. When we are in alignment with our highest self and walking in that place of love, open to guidance that can come in so many different forms, right? In ways you would never expect. And yet it's an absolute knowing that you are on the right path, you are being guided, that all is well, even if you in this moment are so frightened and feeling so alone. And I certainly had many of those moments along the way, and I talk about them in the book. One of which was I was in, I'm totally diverting from what I was just talking about, but I'll get back there. um, I was in a hotel room in Tijuana, Mexico, down there for some treatment when I was going through cancer. And it was one of those times where I was feeling so much fear and I felt so alone. And I don't know, I would imagine that everyone has had moments like that. It's like, who can I reach out to? Who can I call? I'm so alone. I need help. And there was no person there for me to do that. And I knew, of course, at that point in my spiritual journey, I knew that really where I needed to call was within the higher power. I went out into I had a roommate at the time in this hotel room. So I went out into the hallway. And in that moment, and this is what I was talking about earlier, that it's the moments when we need it most, when it can be the hardest to do, right? But I went out into the hallway and I just began rather shakily to call in the divine feminine. For me is a very powerful presence, a manifestation of the divine for me is the divine feminine. And so I called in the divine feminine and I began to speak and I began to tone just as I did in the beginning of our call today. So sometimes, even if you can't find words, just using your voice, to me, it's an unspoken prayer. And sometimes you can't even find the words. So just tone it in, just bring in the intention, and it doesn't matter what the tone sounds like. But for example, you might just hold the intention of, I am so frightened right now. I don't know what to do. And I open to remembering, please help me remember that I am an aspect of the divine whole. And so on. So you don't even have to open your mouth. Just hum, tone it in. And this may sound really weird to you if you haven't played with this yet. I, again, give some exercises in the book. But it's very, very powerful, a powerful way to bring that intention into focus and to help shift that energy from fear to love. I want to give one more example of the divine synchronicity, the road I was starting to go down to and went like that. So coming back to the divine synchronicity, I have so many. In fact, my editor, as I was writing the book, she said, Nancy, I know you had so many examples of the divine synchronicity, but it's like they're about on every other page now. So maybe we need to cut some of the smaller ones out and just leave some of the bigger ones. And I said, but I want to get across that there really can be that. She said, I know, but we got to find a happy medium. So, so there's more than you even read about. But the one that popped into my mind right now is, because this was one that just really blew me away. Many of them did. Is, yeah, I just switched. I'm going to tell this one. I was having more and more, so this is several years after I had been through cancer, and I was doing a lot of work with people, and more people were coming to me with physical maladies. And so, because I work on the body, mind, spirit as one continuum, but I wanted to know more about physiology and anatomy. So I put out to the universe, okay, help me out here. I want to learn more about the physical body and anatomy. And I kid you not, within a week, and it might have even been less than that. I said it in the book, I forget now, but within a week, I get a call. I was on my way out the door to officiate a wedding here locally in Eugene. And the phone rang, and this is in the day of landlines, right? No cell phone. So, and something told me, go back in. So I went in, I answered the phone, and it was a woman who, with her husband, ran a massage school in Des Moines, Iowa. And truncating the story a little bit now, because I want to make sure we have time to do a process. We talked for about 15 minutes, and she said, I just saw your ad in a new mother's magazine whose name I'm forgetting right now. And she said, I loved the energy in that ad. And it was advertising. I have a CD recording called Relaxation for Expectant Mothers. She said, I saw that ad and I loved the energy, and I would like to invite you to hire you to come teach an prenatal and infant massage class at our massage school here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I said, wow, Thank you. I'm honored. That sounds wonderful. But I'm not a licensed massage therapist. And I mean, like, really not even skipping a beat. She said, "Oh, well, that's not a problem. If you can, work it out in your schedule, you can come here to Iowa. We're just about to start a new training level, and we'll put you through our program for free. You can stay in our house. You can use our car, and then you can just take your boards in January, and then you can come back and teach for us next May. And here's what we'll pay you." And I mean, my jaw just dropped, and I said, uh, can I have the weekend? I'll get back to you on Monday. I got to go do this wedding." So, and on so many levels, in so many ways, more than I can tell you in this time, it was so perfect. I went to Iowa. I did this. It was at a perfect time in my life of transitioning relationships where I needed the space. Could I ever have thought that up on my own in answer to my, "Please let me learn more about human anatomy and physiology"? So, anyway, one simple example of many that I share in the book. So, I'd like to once again just open it for a moment to see if anyone has any comments or questions. And I just saw Lee, who has already left. Thank you, Lee.
And
Before we close out with a inward
Tony,
process.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to drop into the chat for those who have not bought the book, the link on Amazon.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. The story you just shared, that was one of my favorites. I mean, you can't make it up.
No.
You can't make it up. And our job is just to get out of the way, right?
Get out of the way and believe. And that's what, this is what I opened to this morning when I just went into meditation and said, okay, what's the main message for today? And I'm going to read you about six sentences here. And this is one of my applicable insights in the book. And it says, again, divine synchronicity never ceases to delight and amaze me. To be open to synchronicity, we must be present and aligned enough to recognize it, believe we deserve it, and courageous enough to take action if called for. Do you believe synchronicity is readily available to you and that you deserve its grace in your life? Are you courageous enough to act on it when it presents itself? So let's let that lead us into another little inward time. Use a bowl. So I invite you to, if you choose, let your eyes gently close. Bring your awareness to your breath. And then imagine yourself, if you will, just sort of riding your breath all the way down into your heart chakra, to that energy center in the center of your chest. And imagine it, if you will. Perhaps you even feel it wide open, expanding with this energy of unconditional love. And perhaps reflecting on that question, am I willing to recognize and open to this high level of divine synchronicity? Do I believe that I deserve it in my life? Am I worthy of it? Hint, the answer is yes. And am I willing and courageous enough to act on it when the opportunities present themselves? We are given gifts, doors are opened, and yet we have to step through them. And perhaps right in this moment, you'd like to imagine yourself standing on the threshold of a doorway, Maybe it's a doorway that you know what's on the other side and you've been a little hesitant to step over that threshold. Or maybe it's a threshold into the unknown, but it's beckoning you. You can feel it. It's your next chapter. It's leveling up, saying yes at a deeper level. Whatever this doorway symbolizes for you, I invite you now with me as we all together, as one, as aspects of the divine one. Imagine ourselves stepping through together. Lift your foot, step over that threshold. Feel your feet. Maybe you're floating. Whatever feels right to you. If it's time, if you're willing, if you have all the courage love takes, cross that threshold into the next chapter of expression of the highest good in your life. And I applaud and thank you for your courage, for the healing that you do for you, the expressions and the gifts that you share with all of us. You heal for all of us, past, present, and future. And for this and so much more, I am grateful. So, my friends, whenever you're ready, let yourself take another good, deep, cleansing, energizing breath. And when you're ready, let your eyes gently open. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Teresa. I keep looking at you in your box. Thank you, Teresa. The challenges of Zoom. I want to look eye to eye. Thank each and every one of you who decided to join us here live today. Thank each and every one of you who may be watching this recorded later. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so through my website, nancyhopps.com, NancyHopps. I think my name shows up there, yeah, nancyhopps.com. I will put out that the next thing that I'm offering is a self-renewal retreat and transformational weekend, which will be held here in Eugene at the Healing Sanctuary, which is where I am very fortunate to live. And it will be, I'll be sending out notices in my newsletter. So if you're not on my newsletter list and you would like to be, you can sign up through my website. And if it's calling to you or you just want more information, I think it's going to be, I haven't done these live since before COVID, so I am super excited to be able to get people out of boxes and into my arms. We'll be doing some fun transformational stuff that weekend. So if it calls to you, reach out soon because it will probably fill quickly. It's a small, intimate group. All right. Teresa, anything else?
Does anybody have any questions? I wanted to make sure that we've attended to all of you who have joined us today. Yeah, Amel, did you have a question for Nancy?
Yeah,
You're
and
on.
am I on mute? Can you hear me?
You're good.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really resonated, and I'm sorry I joined a little late, but I joined at a time where you had said love, and not being fearful, and a lot of it is, that aloneness, right? Then we kind of talked about that synchronicity, right? So my question is, synchronicity also comes with sort of, our minds are relational, right? We're relational and growing. And when, we're now individually and understanding our aloneness to feel comfortable in it and take love and not be fearful, what is the guidance when the relational, right? Maybe you have a relation with someone dear who's not there with you, who's not accepting that love, who's not opening their heart, who's making you feel this, like, how do you open up not just your heart with love? And, I don't know if anybody in the room where you just wanted someone and they just couldn't see, right? So what's the guidance where you're taking that courage, but also the relations, right? And hoping that that through your love that will shine, but when someone else isn't willing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And how do you pronounce your name? Amel?
Yes, thank you for
Okay,
saying
thank you,
yes,
Amel.
because
Thanks for having the courage to ask that, because that's a big question and one that could certainly have a much deeper discussion. But what I would love to say about that right now is, I think you had nuggets of your answer in your question, as we usually do. When you're willing to keep shining that light, when you're willing to keep coming from that authentic place of love, that will allow the other person to raise their vibrational level and meet you there as much as they're able to. And it's, to me, that's the paradox of having a high intention of, from my point of view as a human being, I would love for this person to XYZ. And so we hold that space, we hold that vision, we hold that potential at the same time that we totally release it to a higher power, trusting that that person, even if it's someone near and dear to us, is on their higher path and they must unfold in their own timing, in their own way. And so rather than trying to change them, fix them, speed up their process, feel the grief that that may cause for you, feel the aloneness, feel the sadness, and know that that's a perfect part of your path and your learning to let go, and that what you need is not from that other person. Everything you need is right here. Yeah, that's resonating, I can tell.
thank you so much.
So much love to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Amel.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped Nancy's website in the chat. Um, I know you'll all want to follow her, get her email updates, and learn more about what she does, because I can see in everyone's faces how deeply you receive the wisdom that was shared here today. So, Nancy, thank you. You're so amazing. I love you, and I'm so grateful for this time.
Thank you, Teresa. Amazing back at you, sister. It's an amazing time we're living through. And thank you for letting me join in your community and bring some of my community. And so our community just expanded. Where two or more are gathered, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Yep. All
All
right,
right.
guys. Thank you for being here. I love you.
Blessings all. Mwah.
Bye.
Mm.
Let's see. Wow. Let me hit
I
stop.